buying a home has long been considered a cornerstone of acquiring the American dream. In recent years, many have faced challenges in reaching that milestone with a really hot housing market. But now here in Atlanta, there are some signs the housing market is cooling a bit. There's new data that shows Atlanta home prices dipped slightly from a year ago as mortgage rates continue to squeeze buyers and sellers. So right now we're going to be joined by Bankrate financial analyst Stephen Cates, who is joining us to break down these numbers, the latest data, and what it means for you if you are in the housing market, whether you're trying to buy or to sell. Stephen, thanks for being with us. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, so let's start with this. The top line for somebody who's in the market, whether they're trying to buy or to sell with this latest data, would be what?
The top line is that year over year, and for the fourth quarter in a row, we're seeing negative year over year growth. So what that means is that since the second quarter of 2025, prices have fallen compared to a year earlier. And that's continued now for four straight quarters.
So 4 straight quarters, that's 1 full year. Can you back that timeline out a little bit for us here? What do things look like now compared to, say, 5 or 10 years ago, particularly in that pandemic era? How are we doing compared to then?
Pretty good. So, if you zoom out, things are actually in relatively good shape for most anybody who's owned a home. You've seen precipitous growth in terms of your home equity. And if you zoom out even farther, you're looking at since the data was collected first started being collected in 2007, the Federal Housing Finance Agency has Atlanta homes on the median up about 150%.
For the city of Atlanta, for people who are in Atlanta, how does our situation compare to the national trend line?
So it's not doing as well as the national trend line, but there's a lot going on in the national number. I mean, that is averaging out cities and states all over the country in very different circumstances. So I wouldn't put too much concern in the fact that Atlanta is lagging the national average because you've got towns like Chicago seeing 6% year over year growth. You've also got places like Austin, Texas, where you've got over the last couple of years, nearly 25% drop in prices. So, it's all a little bit relative. Atlanta's not doing so bad, but the amount of building that's taken place in the South has weighed on housing prices. And, we're seeing a little bit of a drop in nominal terms.
I suspect people watching may fall, and they will fall, into a number of different camps. A few of them would be home buyers, potentially, and potential home sellers. Can you take a minute to speak to each of those two camps? What does this latest data mean for people who want to sell their home, and what does it mean for people who want to buy a home?
So for sellers, if you're anchored to the peak prices that you remember from 2022 or 2023, then you're going to be disappointed. You can't sell your home for that amount of money anymore. Maybe there are some rare exceptions, but by and large, those prices were too high. That was kind of the height of the craze for buying homes with still low mortgage rates. We're in a very different circumstance today. People are not coming out to buy and get into a bidding war over homes that are simply not worth what they were a few years ago. People cannot afford to pay the same price and carry that mortgage, given mortgage rates are 2, or in some cases 2.5 times what they were just a few years ago. For buyers, you have a little bit more negotiating room. Now, for the most part, a lot of buyers are sitting on the sidelines, just waiting for mortgage rates to come down. But I would tell people that if you are financially able to buy now, you could go out and look at homes and get seller concessions, find opportunities to get seller repairs, and not necessarily get into a bidding war because there's simply less competition today for the homes that are for sale.
You get at something here I want to tease out a little bit more. In your opinion, does the dynamic we're seeing playing out right now, whereas you pointed to sellers should not be anchored to some of those really high prices that we saw maybe 3 or 4 years ago, is that a result of the fact that mortgage rates are substantially higher now than they were in that core pandemic area, or is it a result of increasing supply where perhaps more homes have been built here in Metro Atlanta, or is it a combination of those factors and maybe some others?
It's a combination of both of those, and I would also say, with a slight dash of simply buyer frustration. People are tired of seeing homes appreciate at such a rapid level, and a lot of the people that were eager to buy homes in the last few years, they've done so if they were financially able. And for those people who may not be as financially stable, or simply are waiting for things to improve, they're comfortable sitting on the sidelines indefinitely until things get to a position where they feel like they're ready to buy.
And let's talk about that future timeline and trend lines. Folks are always keeping a very close eye on all of that. Is this trend going to continue, or do you anticipate things could be shaken up in the next 3, 6, 12 months, or maybe even further down the line?
I think this is going to continue for quite a while. As long as we have mortgage rates in the sixes, I don't think we're going to see much more housing activity. There's a mental line in the sand when it comes to average mortgage rates below 6%. And at the moment, we've gotten farther away from that than we were at the beginning of the year. So that is a big impediment. But also, we need incomes to catch up to the prices that homes are today. Homes have, across the country, but certainly in the Atlanta metro area, where there's been a lot of interest in buying homes, prices have grown substantially from where they were in 2019 and 2020, to the point where it's priced many people out. You can take mortgage rates out of the equation. Prices rose so much, so fast. Even if we still had 3% mortgages, some people would be priced out simply based on the prices they are today. And that's one of the factors. We need to have incomes, and this is going to take years, start to catch up to where prices move to. So we will hopefully get lower mortgage rates in the future, but we're not going to probably be back to the twos or the threes. Maybe we can get to the fours, but it could take years given where interest rates are.
All right, Stephen, we are a little short on time. I'm going to ask you this last question here, and you've alluded to it throughout our conversation, but I want to put it to you directly. For somebody who is thinking about buying their first home right now, what advice would you give them?
The best time to buy is when you know you can afford it. And so if you have the money to go buy a home and you find one that you like, don't wait for the perfect scenario, because that simply isn't going to come along. That house may not be available forever. If you wait 6 months or 12 months, it could be gone and you're starting from square one. So if you find a house you like, you have the money to own it, and the mortgage rate is something that you can comfortably afford, there's no time to wait.
Don't let the perfect be the enemy of good. Good advice from Stephen Cates, a financial analyst with Bankrate. Stephen, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.